Welcome, my beloved children. The time has come. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Happy All Hallows Eve. At last, that time of year has come. A time where the moon shines down upon us, creating that eerie atmosphere that drapes across the land. That time of year where ghosts and goblins frolic about, dancing through the trees as the night morphs their image into twisted hands spawning from the earth. The time where children head out in search of that tasty little treat and attempt not to get spooked by the pranksters hiding in the darkness. Shadows dart around corners as if they have sentience. And it is that time of year where we gather around the cultist circle, grab our friends, and listen to spooky tales from the graveyard. Yes, all you ghosts and ghouls out there, it is time to take a seat, strap yourselves in, and take a listen, as I provide for your enjoyment some incredible tales in my first audio series. Within this series, we delve into the pages of Ghost Train, American Railroad Ghost Legends, collected and retold by Tony Reevy. First published in 1998, this compilation of spooky railroading tales is as old as yours truly. And such a great thrill it is, this book has become my favorite book ever. I must have read it more than 50 times already. Before we get into the program, I want to give you a little disclaimer. I am very much a believer in the paranormal. I have had my fair share of experiences over the years, and I could do a whole video on them on its own. However, I wish to say this up front. I know there are skeptics out there who say it is nothing but a load of nonsense, rubbish, fontswater. Just remember this, everyone listening. Believe in what you want to believe. I choose to believe that there are some things that science cannot explain, and may never explain. Regardless of your beliefs, these legends of rails long gone are what we came here for. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let us introduce you to Ghost Train by Tony Reevy. The ghost train is a common motif in railroad folklore. It is the Flying Dutchman of the rails, running on into folk history without end. A broader look at railroad folklore reveals many other ghostly manifestations associated with trains. Ghostly lights, ghost whistles, ghosts walking, running, or standing along the way, hoodooed engines, haunted cabooses. All of these and more have been reported along America's railways. It's a bewildering plenty of phantoms. In trying to group these legends together, I found 6 main categories of railroad ghost legends, and that's the way this book is organized. The first chapter focuses on ghost trains. Of all railroad specters, the ghost train has the strongest hold on the American imagination. The wheezing, clanking, old steam train, staffed maybe by skeletons, creeping along the track somewhere in America. One of our most famous railroad ghost legends, that of Lincoln's train, falls into this group of stories. Closely related to ghost trains are the phantoms in the second chapter, which highlights ghostly wreck reenactments. Usually realistic, often appearing on the anniversary of the tragedy, ghostly wreck reenactment legends can usually be traced to an accident that actually occurred. The most common category of railroad ghost legends, haunts along the tracks, is discussed in the 3rd and 4th chapters. Haunts along the tracks may be divided into 2 main identifiable types: headless ghosts and ghostly lights, both of which are discussed in Chapter 3. What is perhaps the most famous American railroad ghost, the Mako light, shows up among the ghostly lights along the tracks. The remaining stories of ghosts along the tracks, grouped together for convenience sake in Chapter 4, are a ghostly miscellany of shape-changing phantoms, ghostly music, ghostly mist, ghost tramps, and more. The 4th category is Chapter 5's haunted tunnels, the most famous of these being West Virginia's Big Bend Tunnel. Big Bend Tunnel is the place where John Henry reportedly worked, died, became a legend in song and story, and then returned from the dead. The most interesting thing about the stories in the final 2 categories, haunted railroad stations and haunted rail cars, is how few of them there are. It is difficult to account for the lack of legends about haunted train stations outlined here in Chapter 6. At first thought, it seems that haunted stations would be commonplace. After all, train stations were an important part of most American communities and have often survived to the present day. Yet they seem much less likely to be haunted than houses, for example. The only explanation that suggests itself is that they were rarely the scene of a fatality. Although train stations were often the settings of tragic personal events, seldom did anyone actually die in one. The release of psychic energy, whether actual or psychological, brought about by a death does seem to be what causes most hauntings. In the case of rail cars, engines, and rolling stock, discussed in Chapter 7, the explanation for the dearth of legends is probably transience. The same passenger rarely sees the same sleeping car, for example, and that sleeper may only have a service life of 20 or 30 years. It's hard for ghost legends to form about an object that's always in motion, and that isn't visited by the same person on a regular basis. Finally, what about the most interesting ghost subject of all, the question that anyone studying ghosts is asked over and over again? We have to accept that, at least as things stand now, it is impossible to say whether ghosts really exist. Whether any of these legends have a basis in observed fact. Perhaps we'll never know if ghosts are reported because they really manifest themselves or because people have a deep-set need to believe in the possibility of existence after death. The issue, of course, has been a subject of debate for centuries. Quote, "It was cold and damp in the hobo camp, when a tired and hungry beau fretfully swept as the shadows crept on his bed in the sleet and snow. As the cold wind whined, the hobo's mind fled back through the bygone years, when the rumbling strain of a fast train fell on his dreamy ears. The semaphore dropped, and the rattler stopped, midst the air brake's shrieks and groans. In the high cab chair, sitting there, was the long-dead Casey Jones. She was a manifest and headed west, and a hobo's dream of heaven. On the engine's side, the hobo spied the number 97. End quote. The Phantom Drag by Charles Blue. This book does not try to answer any of these deep philosophical questions. It merely retells railroad ghost stories. Whatever the reason for their prominence, ghosts play a crucial role in our thought and legend. Not surprisingly, then, ghosts have become an important part of railroad folklore over the years, and railroad ghost stories are well worth studying on their own account. Rather than analyzing and getting my thoughts in your way, I've chosen to assume that what the American people have said about these stories down through the years is true. This approach allows us to present America's railroad ghost legends, categorize them, and seek for the kernel of truth that tends to lie at the center of every piece of folklore. Some of the stories are famous, some of them are obscure, but all of them are redolent of coal smoke and signal oil, and of railroad days gone by. I just hope you enjoy reading the stories as much as I enjoyed finding them. And thus, ladies and gentlemen, we begin our story with Ghost Train by Tony Reevy. I hope you will stay tuned, for we have a whole menagerie of stories and legends to go through. I thank you very much for tuning in, my fine viewers, and I hope you have a happy Halloween.